And I see the indicator. Now live on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Great. I see it. Oh, yeah. And it's going to echo now.
Yeah, if you're viewing it on the website or YouTube, you can just mute the application without muting your computer. Just in the YouTube screen, you can turn the volume all the way down.
Okay, I gotta figure this out. Got it. SF Bicycle Coalition, is that Director Lee?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's me.
Okay, I'll rename you.
Okay. I've been trying to fix it.
I don't think you can.
Okay, I've been like logged into my own personal Zoom, but for some reason that name and that icon still shows up.
No problem. I'll change it.
Hey, Patty, I'm going to just try one thing and rejoin, so just give me a moment. I'm sorry about that.
Robert, how'd you get into the ball game?
Oh, I've got a special pass. But I did have to unlock the gate to the BART station. Or actually had to get the A's to unlock the gate.
All right.
Don, how are you?
Very well, Robert. Thank you.
Good.
Looking forward to our work together this year.
2 years.
Oh, that too.
That's right.
You look like your barber has taken a vacation.
I'm waiting until I get my vaccination, and the next appointment I get will be with my hair cutter.
Excellent. That's a good.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty common plan. I've reacquainted myself with an electric razor.
Well, I visited her on Christmas Eve and gave her a gift. She wanted to cut my hair, but I said, no, I'm not there yet.
Very good. Mr. Paget, how are we doing on quorum? We getting close?
I'm going to defer to Patty on that question. Patty, how are we doing on that?
So far, we have 8, so we are close.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Don, I'm going to have to leave at 11.
9.
So let's get all the action items done.
All right. Well, just any that you care about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just a little before, very punctual group. Ready to roll.
Well, Mimi sent out a lot of notices about and instructions that we should update Zoom and
Right.
find new virtual backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Rob, it looks like we have all of our members have been appointed by their jurisdictions. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's right at this point. We have a few new, I know you're going to introduce a few new folks today.
Yes. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
John.
am I supposed to be seeing my?
We can see you. All right. Okay, I think it's the time has come for our meeting to begin. I think we can call. I'm going to call us to order. This is the February 17th meeting of the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. My name is Don Saylor, and I'm pleased to be with you this morning. Director McPartland, it's good to see you, and we see that your mute button does work. So we're off to a good start. All right, I think the next thing is we'll do a roll call and then Pledge of Allegiance. So Priscilla, will you be doing the roll call for us, or who will be doing that?
No, it'll be me.
Okay,
Patty
very good.
Williams.
Patty, thank you.
Yes. Right. Chair Saylor,
Here.
Director Perales,
Here.
Director Allen, Director Duffy, Director Frericks, Director Holmes, Director Howdeschelt, is that how you say your name?
Wow, that is perfect. I'm here.
Thank you. Director Howell, Director Lee,
Here.
Director McPartland,
Here.
Director Miller,
Present.
Director Saltzman,
Here.
Director Price, signed. Director Rayburn,
Here.
Director Sparing,
Present.
Director Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you. And we have alternates. We have a quorum. Director Ames is, Director Holmes, did I call you already? Director Holmes,
I can see he's here.
yeah, I see
Yeah,
he's here.
here.
Here. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
Director Saltzman, would you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge to the flag?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to
flag
the flag
of the United States of America and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, everyone. We have several items of very great interest this morning. I'm going to move to item 3, which is the chair's report. Just as you all know, this is a virtual meeting, so all speakers, including our board and staff, are requested to announce their names as they begin to speak. The meeting is live streamed, and you can watch it by going through the link on our CCJPA website. You can also download the agenda and the presentation materials at that same website. Friends, please mute your microphones when you're not speaking to avoid background noises. And for public participants, your microphones are automatically muted. When we get to public comment opportunities, if you wish to speak, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hand if you're on the phone. When it's your turn to speak, you may need to dial *6 to request the unmute request your microphone to be unmuted. If you wish to make a general comment on a subject not on the agenda, you'll be given an opportunity to speak under item 7. We will give you opportunities to comment on items that we have on our agenda. This will come after staff presentation and board questions, but prior to board action. Comments which have been received by email as of yesterday at 2 o'clock have been provided to the board and will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. Comments that come in after that time will be provided to the board following the meeting. In order to reduce confusion when it's time for director remarks, I'll call for board member comments, and I'd like for you to either raise your hand virtually using the raise hand button under participants, or let me know if you want to speak, and I'll recognize you, and then please again make sure that we know your name as you begin to speak for the recording, because while Raul will recognize Rebecca's voice, we may not all recognize all the voices, and the public won't see that either. Vice Chair Perales and I will speak last, and in the interest of time, to provide an opportunity for equal participation, we've got a good sized board, so we'll try to keep our comments concise. This is a very interesting time for transition. We've got some changes in our board. I want to thank several board members who have given good service to this group and who have moved on to other parts of their service or their lives. So John Allard from the Placer County Transportation organization will no longer be a member of the board, so thank you, John. Teresa O'Neill represented the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. Cheryl Mackey, who served as alternate for PCTPA, and our good friend Steve Hansen from the Sacramento RT board. So thank you all to those four for their distinguished service to this board. And welcome to Director Bruce Houdschelt, who will come in representing Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, and Director Lisa Gilmore, who will represent the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. And I don't see Jeff Harris on here with us, but he's now an alternate again, joining us from SAC RT. So welcome back to Director Harris. And we want to thank some staff who are about to retire from CCJPA next month. So thanks to Rose Poblet, who's been our treasurer for the last 6 years, and to Patty, Patricia Williams, who has supported us as the CCJPA board secretary and we're over the last 3 years, and has a 25-year career with Bart and CCJPA. And I think Camille Sau is with us today, who will be stepping in. I think that Rob, that she'll be stepping into that role. And then lastly, a very warm welcome. Oh, excuse me, I made a mistake. A very warm welcome to Jacqueline Edwards, who will be stepping in as the new CCJPA secretary in March. I apologize for that. So thank you, everybody. And I think we'll move to the consent calendar. Mr. Paget, would you like to make any comments on that?
No, we'll just put that in front of the board for consideration.
Okay, is there any item on there's a slide, I think, that you have for us on that, but is there any item that on the consent calendar that any member would like to remove from consideration as consent item?
Move approval.
Second.
Miller, second.
Okay, very good. We have a motion by Saltzman and a second by Miller to approve the consent calendar. Do we have any members of the public who have a comment on any item on the consent agenda? I don't see any, so let's do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, we do have one hand raised. I don't know if it's for consent calendar, so let me just ask. To the person who's just been unmuted, did you want to speak on consent calendar?
No, I was just having a problem logging on to the meeting, but it's working now, so you can ignore that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Saylor,
Yes.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Duffy,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Haudeshelt.
Because this is my first meeting, I'm going to abstain.
All right. Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very
Motion
good.
carries.
Thank you. We're moving now to item 5.1. Rob, a COVID-19 update.
Yes, good morning. And we have masks on because a few of us are in the room together, so hopefully everyone can hear us okay. For this first item, I will turn it over to Leo Sanchez, and he will provide a brief update on our response to the COVID pandemic, and in particular today, we have a lot of uncertainty ahead of us, but give you a little bit of a preview of our thinking as we look ahead to rebuilding our service. With that, I'll turn it over to Leo, and we should have some slides coming up here.
Thanks, Rob.
Let's wait. Let's hold on 1 second and turn the slides. There we go. If you can go ahead a few slides, Patty.
There we are. Thank you. All right. So the graph here shown on the slide takes us through almost about a year ago, just before the shelter-in-place order took effect back in March 16th of 2020. And you can see our ridership trends throughout the past year. It took a hard dip almost a year ago to about 5% of our prior year ridership, 2019. This whole graphic is comparing versus 2019 ridership and takes us through this year. So you can see we started to recover and got up to about the mid to high teens versus a year ago. And then we started to see another dip after the regional shelter-in-place order took effect the first part of December. And as it was lifted just a few weeks ago, we started to see an upward trend again. The graph here doesn't cover it, but we're just around 13% compared to 2019 at the same time. Next graph, or next slide, I'm sorry. All right, so here we're going to talk a little bit more in terms of our service restoration, as Rob mentioned. So we're kind of weighing a couple of things. One is our, first off is our critical factors that are going to be driving the service, and then right next to that will be our post-COVID service recovery. So I'm going to start off with the right side and talk a little bit about what we're looking at that's going to be driving our service ramp up. So first and foremost is health and safety. We're going to be keeping a close eye on mass vaccinations throughout the region. We're going to be watching the tiers and try to make sure that we follow the state guidance along the counties that we cover. And the next portion to that will be the budget. So right now, thanks to through the stimulus packages that have been passed through and the state and federal support that we have, things are looking okay, but we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on this. And then the last part will be equipment availability. So part of really being able to restore our full service does require us to have some additional equipment that we should be able to have when that equipment is delivered to San Joaquin. So right now, it looks like that could happen by the end of the year, and we're going to keep a close eye on that and working closely with our partners. So in talking through our post-COVID service recovery, there's a few things that I want to highlight. The first one is our Stepladder service ramp-up. So we're looking through the weekday and weekend ridership, weekend and weekday ridership, and we're going to be thinking about a stepladder increase. So this would likely look at going from our current service level, which is about 16 trains per day and 10 trains per day on the weekend, and going up from that to 22 per day on the weekday and 16 on the weekend, and then eventually going up to our full service, which was 30 trains on the weekdays and 22 on the weekends. Next to that is we are trying to think through bringing back onboard services. So we're also going to be keeping a close eye on the regional orders and seeing as dining in comes back on throughout the counties that we travel on. And we would likely couple that with our Stepladder service ramp up. So we're just we'll be informing you more of that. And the last part is our bus service. Is we're going to be making some adjustments. Rob's going to be covering later on the slides our new something exciting that we're going to be happy to talk about, and we do have a upcoming schedule change, and we're going to be aligning our bus service to make sure that we match with our train service. And lastly, we'll be making sure we match our increased frequency between San Francisco and Emeryville as that takes shape. And we can go on to the next slide. And I'll pass it back to Rob.
Yeah, and we'll pause for questions, and I wanted to.
We lost you, Rob. I can't hear you.
Okay. Thanks, Don. So just to clarify the equipment issue, when we were ramping down our service, one of the things that we did to keep our finances in solid shape is the state of California owns all of the equipment for intercity passenger rail services. That's ours, San Joaquin's and Lausanne, and we are sharing that equipment, and there will be some new equipment coming in the San Joaquin's, and when that happens, it will free up equipment that the San Joaquin's currently has in place and shift that over to our service. This was part of our move. We let go of some Amtrak leased equipment early on in the pandemic to be able to manage our finances a little more carefully. With that, I'll pause for any questions on this item.
Colleagues, are there any questions on the COVID-19 update? Okay.
I would like to point out that there was one written comment received from Mike Barnbaum on this, and it was transmitted to you yesterday.
And
Thank
there
you.
is hand raised, Chair Saylor.
I don't see a hand, but
Director
is it-
Saltzman. Director
Oh,
Saltzman.
I see her physical hand coming up. Yes. So Director Saltzman has a question or comment.
Thank you. It's exciting to see that we're, at least thinking about expanding service again. Can you talk us through a little bit more about that decision-making process? Because I know it's not just up to you and it's up to the state. And how is that going to move forward? Have you all talked about how that's going to move forward? Just if you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, you're correct. We are coordinating that very closely with the other intercity passenger rail services in California. Part of what we're watching is, as Leo mentioned, is the health conditions in the state, and we want to make sure that that it is safe to travel, people are comfortable traveling, and we're going to see that as our ridership starts to tick up. What we will likely do, and this will depend a little bit on the additional federal support. If we get an additional tranche of federal support, that puts us into a pretty good place financially to start looking at service increases, is that the first step up would be able to happen hopefully this summer or at the latest in the early fall. And then the second step will depend on that equipment availability almost as much as budget. But we're going to watch things, and what we may end up doing, and in fact with the service schedule change that I'll talk about a little bit later, we may move trains. So if we have some trains that are not very full and some spaces in the day where we think there's more demand, we may move trains without increasing service. So this is going to be a somewhat dynamic situation over the coming months. The one issue with the onboard services is that we did get specific directive from the California Department of Public Health, and the request is that we not operate onboard services until we reach the point where 50% of indoor dining services are allowed in the counties in which we operate. So there's a really clear criteria. Once we hit that, we'll work with Amtrak to bring back the forces that they have available to provide that service. And that's probably a harder thing to predict.
You know, I'm less concerned about that and about allowing food. I mean, I actually wonder if that might stop some people from riding Capitol Corridor. I think it would be worth looking at when that happens, and we're probably pretty far out from that. We might designate a car where there will be no eating allowed, just for people who haven't been vaccinated yet, who don't feel comfortable. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable sitting on a train for 2 hours knowing that the person right across from me is going to be eating and not wearing a mask. So it just might be something to think about once we get to that point. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and I think we are, the team here shares your concerns, and we want everyone to feel safe, and so that's been our concern with allowing eating on the train.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other comments or questions from members of the board? Do we have any public? Oh yes, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair Saylor. Just as a follow-up for Director Salzman's comments, I think what I'm hearing is that there are some sort of trigger scenarios around when these ramp up occurs. So I think in future presentations, like knowing what those trigger points are and whether they've been hit, I think would be helpful for us to understand, so that seems like the increase in service is intentional and done safe and rationalized.
Sure, absolutely. And one thing I should mention is we still are under the directive from the state to maintain 60% or less of our full service. So that does have to get formally lifted before we're able to do that. But yeah, we'll absolutely do that in future presentations.
Of course, we don't meet until April, so there may be changes in the meantime. So I know you'll let us know in your updates of changes in this. Are there any other members of the board with questions or comments? I don't see any. Is there any public comment on this topic? We've already heard from Mr. Barnbaum. His is in order.
Right, and there are no hands raised in the meeting.
Very good. So we'll move on then to item 2. The budget, the budget update.
All right, and so this, and kind of pivoting off our last discussion, this is an item that will get covered by Kat Relucci, our manager of budget and operations, and she will cover the next 2 items which are related. The approval of the state's budget authority for the rest of the year, and then the Amtrak operating agreement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kat Relucci.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good morning, CCJPA Board. As Rob stated, I'm going to go ahead and cover the next two agenda items that are related. The first is to approve the FY21 budget and funding for Amtrak operations, and that's for the remaining 8 months of the fiscal year. And then the second is to execute the FY21 operating agreement for the time period that aligns with that funding. So for item V.2, the approval of the operating budget. So at the November meeting, the CCJPA board approved the Amtrak operations budget for the first 4 months of FY21, and that was for October 2020 to January 2021. Funding for these first 4 months included FY20 surplus operations funding, and that was a carryover of unexpended operating funds from the prior fiscal year due to savings from the Federal CARES Act, as well as FY20 CARES Act funding, which capped our expenses at 80% of FY19 billings. And the FY20 CARES Act funding has now been fully exhausted as of the January 2021 billing. And if you could advance to the next slide, please. A few weeks ago, the California State Transportation Agency provided CCJPA with a second allocation to support FY21 operations for the remainder of the fiscal year, the 8 months from February through September 2021. This is the budget that we are seeking your approval for today. The budget allocated supports the current level of temporary reduced service that Leo described in the prior agenda item. So the budget for the next 8 months is based on a conservative estimate of revenue at $3.3 million, estimated operating costs at $28.69 million, and a total funding need of $25.39 million. On the funding side, the budget includes $2.22 million remaining in FY20 surplus operations funding. Again, this is the carryover from FY20. It includes $13.4 million in FY21 federal emergency relief funding provided to Amtrak, and this was signed by the former president in December. And then lastly, it includes $9.77 million in FY21 operating funds provided by CalSTA. So we're requesting your approval for the FY21 operations budget and funding for the remainder of the fiscal year. And this concludes our presentation of the current agenda item. And we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Kat. So our board, are there questions on this item? I don't see any hands raised. Is there any public comment on this action item before us?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, very good. So we have a recommended action to authorize the execution of the FY21 CCJPA Amtrak operating agreement for the months of February to September 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Robert
that?
Rayburn, I'll move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion by Rayburn.
I'll second.
Okay, and a second by Director McPartland. Would you please call the roll?
Chair Saylor,
Yes.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Duffy,
Yes.
Director Frericks,
Yes.
Director Holmes,
Yes.
Director Howdesel,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director
You're on.
Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you. Carries unanimously.
Very good, thank you. And I think that brings us to item 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, your next item, Kat.
Great, thank you. So item V.3 is the approval of the FY21 operating agreement. So now that we have the funding allocated for the for the remaining 8 months in FY21, we can move forward with requesting the board approval of the FY21 operating agreement for the same time period. So in a normal year, we request approval from the board for a full year operating agreement, which usually occurs in September. And this year, to align with the initial FY21 operations funding provided by the state, which was for the 4 months of October to January, we extended the FY20 operating agreement, which the CCJPA board approved at the November meeting. Today, we are requesting your board's approval of the FY21 Amtrak operating agreement, which will cover the 8 months remaining. The agreement supports the current temporary reduced level of service for a not to exceed amount of $25.39 million. This is consistent with the budget and funding described in the previous item. CCJPA will continue to work with CalSTA, Caltrans, Amtrak, and the other JPAs to monitor costs and demand with the goal of adding service when health and financial conditions allow. If during the course of the fiscal year we seek to add additional service, we will request approval to amend the FY21 operating agreement at that time. And this concludes the presentation for this agenda item, and we welcome any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions, board members? I don't see any questions. Yes, Mr. Rayburn.
Yes, thank you, Robert Rayburn. Patty, do we have any public comments?
Not on this, there are no hands raised.
Okay. I want to make a comment regarding the connecting bus service in the agreement, in the extended version of the package, and point out that an augmented connecting bus network is possible since Assembly Bill 742 removed ticketing restrictions in 2019. Many of you remember working with us on that legislation. One example that I find is from the city of Truckee, where 25% of their workforce endures what we would refer to as a mega commute over 50 miles. The agreement shows that Truckee will be served by only 3 buses daily on Amtrak line 20A between Sacramento and Reno. To address the growing commuter needs and demands, really, over the coming year, I ask that we work with state and local officials to explore cooperative agreements as allowed in the Assembly Bill and reimagine the bus network as permitted by Assembly Bill 742. To add to this challenge, Truckee is in Nevada County, not represented by anybody on this screen, but as added motivation to move forward with this. I feel that because Assembly Bill 742 also requires a report to the state legislature on by January 1st of 2023. So I'm asking that we move forward with planning with state and local, bring in partners and start really addressing the needs of creating a network connecting to our rails. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rayburn. Mr. Padgett, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, very much appreciate the comment, and we absolutely agree with the sentiment. We are working with a couple of these partners currently. We will be coming back to you in April with the draft business plan for approval. And what I think we will do is include that as a very specific item in the business plan. And we agree that there are lots of opportunities, and in particular, given the reality of the fiscal situation over the coming few years in transit, we certainly want to not duplicate service and also make sure that service is open to everyone who can take it. And you're correct that Senate Bill 742 opened the door and now lets us take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, very good. Director Frericks, you have a hand?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to specifically say to respond to Director Rayburn, I really appreciate you raising this issue. But also to say, yeah, while Nevada County isn't explicitly represented on this board, the border of Truckee and as Nevada County and Placer County is just right there. But there are efforts underway. Rob just sort of in a higher level referenced these efforts, but efforts underway with both SACOG, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, as well as TERPA, the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, as well as Placer County PCTPA, which is represented on this board, sort of trying to get exactly at that issue that you're rightly raising, especially. And I think, unfortunately, the stat you had is specifically for Truckee in terms of the sort of mega commutes. The Tahoe region itself is upwards of 80+%, maybe even higher than 85% of the folks working in the Tahoe Basin are commuting from far away. So there's real issues to sort of back up your initial point about Truckee, and really appreciate you raising it. And I do think that there are efforts underway to sort of work on addressing exactly the concern you raised.
Very good. So that sounds like, and Lucas, sounds like Rob's going to address this in the work plan coming up. So seems like a good approach. We have an item before us. Is there any further comment on the item before us?
I'll move approval. Robert Rayburn.
And
Second by Frericks.
So motion by Rayburn, second by Frericks. So Robert, you already asked for public comment. We had none. So we'll move on to a roll call vote, please.
Chair Saylor,
Aye.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Duffy,
Yes.
Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Haudeshelt,
Aye.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you. Carries unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. And we'll move to item 5, which is item 4, which is the legislative update.
And Patty, we should have a slide for this one. And just this is as a backdrop as I talk through this. In your packet, there is a summary of our state and federal legislative items that we're watching closely. Today, I'm going to focus on a couple of the federal items. We will keep an eye on Sacramento in the current legislative session and make you aware of anything that we need to weigh in on. On the federal side, we've obviously been paying attention to what's happening in Washington much more than we typically do. In December, the COVID relief package provided us with more than $13 million in support, which we very much appreciate. We are also keeping an eye on the American Rescue Plan, and that is the $1.9 trillion package that we're all hearing about. In that current draft, there is support for a similar level of support that we saw through the COVID relief package. So we would, again, through Amtrak, see that support for our services. So we will very closely monitor that, and that absolutely will have an impact on how quickly we can restore our service as health conditions allow. The last item I want to highlight is the Reauthorization of Fast Act. The Fast Act was extended by a year, and that now expires on September 30th and includes a rail title as a part of that. We do intend to stay engaged with Congress, and we've had a lot of positive news in recent years with some appropriations under this authorization to provide support for passenger rail. We're hopeful that that continues. And as we've discussed at previous meetings, we want to be able to leverage a lot of our state dollars to be able to expand our service, and certainly are looking to Congress for some additional support there. So we will keep a close eye on the FAST Act as we move through the reauthorization in the coming year. With that, I will pause and take any questions on any of the items in the packet.
Any questions, colleagues? The state and federal legislative update. I don't see any hands from board members. Are there any public comments on this item?
There was one written comment from Mike Barnbaum, and there is one hand raised at the board level.
Okay, we've received Mr. Barnbaum's comment. Who is with the person who has asked to speak?
Director Rayburn.
Robert, excuse me. I think
want to ask about.
Excuse me.
I want to ask about.
Mr. Rayburn, excuse me. I think we have did we have a public comment? Let's listen to that.
No, there are no other hands raised.
I'm sorry. Okay, Robert, thank you.
Thank you, Robert Rayburn. The governor's proposed a $1.5 billion budget for zero emission vehicles. Mr. Paget, can you describe how that could apply to the Cap Corridor operations?
Yeah, so I'll just mention a couple of things. So I think you're aware we've been in partnership. This is a shorter term item, which is we're in partnership with CARB. We are testing our locomotives for renewable diesel, and we're nearing the end of that test. And so what that means is that warranties and all that will work. Siemens will be a partner on this, and we can shift all of our fuel source and significantly reduce our greenhouse gases. So that's short term. But long term, the state and the JPAs are looking at alternatives to our current diesel locomotives, and we are doing so through some, I think the state is providing some research dollars, but we're also going to hopefully work at the federal level in partnership, because we do think that there are opportunities to develop some technology to potentially move into this space on the locomotive side as well.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. No other questions. This is an information item. There's a lot of potential going on, a lot of potential this year for positive change in our business here. The next item is related to what we just heard from Rob. Friends, we're very well positioned with Mr. Paget's background and connections in the passenger rail world nationally and in the western part of the country as well, to have a fairly large role in helping to define this next set of legislative actions. Our next meeting is not until April, and we've got to, with our every 2-month meetings, I see a need for us to have a little bit of input with Rob's work, to be nimble, to have board input on the moving targets that we're going to see potentially come across in federal legislation this year. So item 5 is a request from me as chair to have an ad hoc subcommittee focused on nimble action and nimble conversations with our executive director during this, what may be a fast-paced year. So that's the request, and what I'd like to do is create this ad hoc committee very soon, and ask you, each of you, if you're interested in being a part of this, to send an email to Rob and myself in the next couple of days by Friday into business, so that we know that you're interested, and then I'll try to get a group together in the near term. The idea here is that Rob is going to be engaged very rapidly, and sometimes without much notice in this process, and I'd like to be able to have the board have a sounding board for him on this stuff. So that's my suggestion to you all, and this would be an ad hoc committee appointed by the board. Are there any questions or comments on this? Rebecca?
I think it's a great idea, and I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second that. I have a question for you though, Chair Saylor.
Great. So we have thank you, Director Lee. So we have a motion by Saltzman, second by Lee, and Janice, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about how you envision who is on this ad hoc committee?
One of the things I was thinking of, well, first of all, it'd be people who are interested. And so that's why I'm asking that you let me know. If there are more people than we have, then we have slots, we have a limit on the number we can have on an ad hoc committee. Then I'll try to look at a balance geographically across our lines. And then I'm going to look to the vice chair and past chair, and hopefully they'll be interested in participating. But beyond that, we'll see. So, do you have any comments on how that might work?
No, that sounds great. I was just sort of wondering because I'm a little bit newer to this board and haven't been here for the creation of other ad hoc committees.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Is there any public comment on this topic?
There are no hands raised.
All right. So seeing none and hearing no other comments or questions, please call the roll.
Chair Saylor,
Aye.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Duffy, Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Haudeshelt,
Aye.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland. Thank you. Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you. Carries unanimously.
Thank you, colleagues. We'll move to item 6, advertising services.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Priscilla Colugden, our marketing officer for this. And before I turn it over, I want to make a public word of thanks to her team for some incredible work over the last year. This is obviously a really different time for reaching out to our customers, and our team has done wonders, and I think that's a real strength of Capitol Corridor. So look forward to hearing a little bit from her today about what we're going to do in the coming months. With that, I'll turn it over to Priscilla.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that, and our whole team appreciates that too. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to approach you today about our advertising support services and give you an update on what we've been doing so far this fiscal year, as well as move forward with the action item before you, which is a request for additional budget for this year. Next slide. As you probably have figured out, we have been doing intermittent advertising since last spring, since the pandemic hit. We've been pretty much limited to paid search at some times during this time to focus on essential travelers and with the travel safely message, given just the changing nature of the public health conditions that are on the landscape. Right now, we are using the remaining media buy that we had. We had some advertising campaigns that did run this past year with the travel safely message. These were deferred from FY20, and we've been sort of saving them and using them this year. We're currently running a deferred media buy for the remainder of this month with these travel safely messages, focusing on people who have already expressed interest in the train. So it's a retargeting campaign. And that basically is focusing on people who are willing to travel and who are considered essential travelers. Right now, our contract this month is ending with our current agency. So this is the reason that we are approaching you for a budget request. Next slide. Just to catch you up, as what Rob had mentioned, we've done some different things this year to engage with our customers. We started a virtual webinar series called Corridor Conversations, and we'll be planning another one for March and for April, as well as we recently profiled a couple of our passengers who are riding during the pandemic, one of whom is actually a new rider and started during COVID. And I urge you to check those out. We've shared these via social media and put them on our website so that people can get a taste of what it's like to ride right now as opposed to what it's been like in the past. Next slide. And I'm sure this map is pretty familiar to you, but I just wanted to reiterate that, since late November, most of California has been in the purple tier, which is most restrictive, and travel restrictions have pretty much varied throughout the region in the months before that. I am looking forward to seeing these areas turn red and orange and as we go forward and continue to have vaccines roll out. Next slide. To give you a little bit of a look ahead at how we're looking at our advertising messaging and planning in these changing times, we've put together this series of phases, if you will, tied in with the different purple, red, and orange tiers. Phase 1, of course, is travel restricted. We just came out of another one of those, which was during December, of stay-at-home orders where things are very strict. We're now in phase 2, where there's a mix of purple and red tiers. Stay-at-home orders have been lifted. We focus primarily on essential travel and convey, that we have a safe environment to offer on our train. And we're looking forward to moving into phase 3, where travel will be much more allowed, limited, and people will have the sentiment of wanting to travel a lot more, which I think we're all eager to get back to. But this chart here indicates when we'll be able to move into those areas, because we are under some restrictions on how much we can advertise and promote the service according to public health conditions. So this indicates, once we start to move into more orange tiers in different areas, we'll be able to have a much more active role in our advertising and move on to phase 4, when we can encourage travel and do business and leisure travel again. Next slide. So we've been doing some thinking about what our ridership recovery marketing plan would be, and there will be definite market research needed to sort of establish where are our customers coming from now, how often will they travel and such. We'll have to develop an advertising plan. There will need to be some travel partnerships later on once travel is in the encouraged phase, as well as what kind of promotional offers will be attractive to travelers as we go through each phase. Next slide. So with that today, I'm seeking the board's authorization for $137,500 from our FY21 marketing funds. This is to cover support services for advertising for the remainder of this fiscal year. And I expect that once we have allocation for FY22, we will be coming back to you for a more sizable advertising budget to help us through recovery. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Yes, thank you very much. I think this is an action item for us. Are there members of the board who have questions? And after that, we'll go to public comment and then board action. Any questions? I don't see any board questions. Is there any public comment on this topic?
No, there are no hands raised.
All right, very good. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mr. McPartland.
Howdeshelt seconds.
Very good. We have a motion by McPartland and a second by Howdeshelt. Please call the roll.
Chair Saylor,
Aye.
Director Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Duffy, Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Holmes,
Aye.
Director Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller, Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Gilmore.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We've completed the items listed for action on our agenda. We have some very interesting informational items coming up. So Rob, the next one is item 7, the capital projects update.
Thank you, Chair Saylor. So real quickly, before we get into the big presentation on link 21, I want to pause. In your packet, there is a list of all of our ongoing capital projects. And I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions about any of those that are underway. So I'll pause there for any questions.
Any questions, colleagues, on the capital projects listing on page 30 of the packet that we have before us? I don't see any questions, Rob. So
all right, great. Yeah, you go to the next agenda item. Yep.
Yep.
All right, we are excited today to bring you our guests from the Bay Area Economic Council Institute. This project was funded by the state through a TIRSIP grant, and we appreciate the support of CalSTA and the state of California in this important effort. As you are aware, we have supported this study as a part of our partnership with Bart to move forward on this potential transformational project in Northern California. As you will hear from the presentation today, the challenges and opportunities facing our region extend across Northern California, and through this unique partnership between Capital Corridor and Bart, we are well positioned to deliver real change to our regional transportation system. Before I turn it over to the Capital Corridor Project Manager, I would like to give Bob Powers, who is the Bart General Manager and also serves as the CCJPA Executive Director, an opportunity to say a few words.
Thanks, Rob. My name is Bob Powers. I am in the conference room here with Rob down at on the 19th floor here. So I did want to just say a couple of words here. So I think we got the project and the effort, the initiative here really got off to a positive start. We last couple of weeks we partnered with the Bay Area Council. You heard from Rob, and we did a nice presentation there with the Bay Area Council and Bart and Capital Corridor. Well received, very informative, a lot of people on the call, a lot of good energy, a lot of good questions there. And it's very exciting, this project. And, you know, there was a talk here on, you know, the discussion about folks commuting long distances. And, you know, you're going to hear a little bit today about the mega region and some of the work that the Bay Area Council did with that. So I wanted to thank Jim Wunderman and the staff of the Bay Area Council for their work in partnership with this effort here. And the other point not to be missed in this effort as it unfolds, and, you know, this board will be getting routine briefings, you know, from Rob and I, as will the Bart board and many other boards throughout the region, that this really is a partnership, you know, the primary partnership with Bart and Capital Corridor, but by extension, it is a very strong partnership with the state of California. And is evident by when we did our kind of our kickoff meeting with the public and the Bay Area Council. It was after Jim Wunderman kicked it off. You know, the Secretary of Transportation opened it up with some very constructive, very thoughtful comments, and we are in a good position to partner with the state on this effort. So it's exciting. And with that, Rob, I'm going to turn this over to Camille.
Yep.
Camille from Rob's staff, who is Camille's program manager for Capital Corridor on this effort for Link 21.
Thank you, Rob and Bob. Hi, I'm Camille Tsao with the Capital Corridor. I'm the Link 21 program lead on our side. Could we have the next slide, please? I'm just going to give you an update on the program before I turn it over to the Bay Area Council Economic Institute. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last time I gave you an update was in September. So I just wanted to share a few things that we've done since then. First off, our program is in Plan Bay Area 2050. It's in the blueprint. The full document is set to be adopted later this year. We also launched our website, link21program.org. And I know some of you have already visited it and given us some comments. The website will continuously be updated. Right now, it's just been up for the public for the last 3 weeks or so. We've got a survey there for people to respond to our goals and objectives, and we've gotten over 1,000 responses just within the first couple weeks. And as Bob mentioned, we had a webinar hosted by the Bay Area Council, which was very successful, where the findings of the report was shared, which you will hear in just a minute. We had over 360 attendees at the webinar, which I believe was a record breaker for the Bay Area Council. And that doesn't include folks that were also watching the live stream on YouTube. And then we've been out giving presentations virtually to elected officials, agencies, and advocacy groups, just to spread the word about Link 21 and let them know that the program exists and that we're starting with stakeholder outreach. Next slide, please. So what's next for the program? We are starting co-creation workshops with community-based organizations throughout the mega region. We're partnering with agencies, stakeholder agencies around the mega region to host other virtual public meetings scheduled for March, summer, and later this year. And we're developing program concepts, working with the state and other stakeholder agencies. So in about a year's time, you will get to see the culmination of our work, and we will have some concepts of what will be included in the program. So between now and then, you'll continue to receive updates from me and others. But now I'd like to hand it over to Jeff Belisario and Greer Cohen from the Bay Area Council Economic Institute, who are going to share the findings of their report. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Camille. And we can go to the next slide, please. And maybe one more. All right, so I guess I want to kick things off. I'm going to give, and Greer's going to give the Cliff Notes version of a 50-page report. So we're going to move quickly, but you can find our report on the Link 21 website and at bayareaeconomy.org, our website. So next slide, please. So when we started off on this project looking at mega-regional commute trends and looking at the potential mega-regional impacts of the new Trans-Bay Rail crossing, we started in 2019. So we didn't know what COVID-19 was at that point in time. This is what our roads look like. Some of them still look like this, but I'm going to show you some pre-COVID trends because much of the data we have is still back from 2019. So next slide, please. So just in terms of when we talk about the mega region, we talk about 21 counties. We talk about a population of about 13 million people. To put that in context, the LA region has about 18 million. The New York region has about 20 million, so we're a little bit smaller there. We've got about 6 million jobs over these 21 counties. We've got over $1 trillion in GDP. And that sounds like a lot, it is a lot, but the context on that is that would make us the 16th largest country in the world. We'd be right between Mexico and Indonesia, looking across these 21 counties. So at the Bay Area Council, we've been studying the mega region for a long time, studying commute flows, studying people movement, company movement. And we set it up as 4 subregions here, but these are artificial boundaries. Goods move across these counties and regions, people move across them. But there are a few agencies and governmental entities really looking mega region wide. The Capital Corridor, though, is one. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about the transportation trends within the region here. Next slide. So the first piece we highlight, and we often talk about our population trends. So here on the right side, we do show that from 2012 to 2020, numbers-wise, population growth still very much concentrated in what we'd call kind of the core Bay Area counties. Santa Clara, Alameda, Sacramento is near the top of that list. even San Francisco County has had pretty strong population growth over the past decade or so. But if you look at the percentages there, places like San Joaquin County and Placer County are having the fastest growth. And many of those, call them collar type counties around the Bay Area region, are having the fastest percentage population growth coming out of the last recession, the Great Recession. So we're looking at 2012 to 2020 here. Next slide, please. And I think the population growth becomes more interesting when you put it in context of the job growth. So here, if you take nothing else from this chart, we've got population growth is kind of the darker yellow. Employment growth is the lighter yellow here. 71% of the job growth in the last expansion happened within the 9-county Bay Area, but only 58% of the population growth is happening within the 9-county Bay Area. And if you look kind of away from San Francisco, and the Bay Area Council is a San Francisco-based organization, but if you look at the population numbers as you head east, East Bay growing quickly, the Sacramento area growing quickly, the northern San Joaquin Valley growing quickly, but all those bars are larger than their job growth, which will take me to, I think, the next slide, please. And one of the main reasons we're seeing that population shift is because of housing. And this shouldn't surprise many of you here. We know home prices are high. They're particularly high in San Francisco and along the peninsula. What has happened, though, is the home price delta. And just as an example, between Alameda and Sacramento County, that delta in 2012 was $200,000. In 2020, it's now $500,000. So home prices are driving a big piece of that population shift that we're seeing around the mega region. Next slide, please. So it's with that jobs housing mismatch, and I think that sets up our whole conversation here. With that jobs housing mismatch, and we've talked about it a little bit, we see more and more people commuting into the 9 counties or having those mega type commutes where they're commuting across regional boundaries. So here it's nearly 200,000 people in 2019 were commuting into the 9-county Bay Area. You see the growth numbers there, particularly from Sacramento and from the northern San Joaquin Valley, growing quickly. And you look at commutes going in the opposite direction, the scale there is not really close to the number of people that are coming in. So we do think there's a big opportunity for jobs to eventually follow population and having more commutes, more balanced commute across our 21 county mega region here. Next slide, please. So I mentioned those long commutes that are happening, and here we show the travel preferences first of all people employed in the Bay Area. And I show transit here in gold at 12%. And then we show people that are commuting in from outside the 9 counties, transit just 4%. So again, part of that opportunity here in pushing more people onto transit, making transit more competitive with the car to make those long commutes, because that transit mode share here for our mega regional commuters is just a small slice of the pie. Next slide, please. And we've mentioned this a little bit too, a lot of numbers on this slide, but I'll point you to the right side. So the darkest orange here are commutes over 50 minutes. The top line in each of these is 2018. The bottom line is 2010. So kind of no matter where you're working, and this is all by work location, in the 12 non-Bay Area counties, those commutes are getting longer. In the 9 Bay Area counties, we've gone from 11% to 19% in the 50-plus minute commutes. And then in particular, looking at San Francisco and San Mateo counties, that commute has just exploded from 15% of the working population to 24% of the working population in 2018. So commutes are getting longer distance-wise, also getting longer time-wise. The next slide, please. And then I think this is my last one here before I turn it to Greer. Just pointing out again the key gateways of the mega region, and we look particularly along the Capital Corridor line, along I-80 from Sacramento toward Richmond, and then along the 880 corridor between Oakland and San Jose. Those are the corridors, and purple here is bad. Purple here is congestion. So those are the corridors that are most congested within our mega region. And again, we think there are big opportunities to drive people from the roadways onto transit post-pandemic. Let me go to the next slide. So you're probably saying, all right, Jeff, you just gave us a lot of 2018, 2019 numbers, but remote work has happened. We have a pandemic. The world is changing, but I think some of those trends still support the mega region. I'm going to turn it over to Greer to talk about some of our post-pandemic mega region numbers that we're watching.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So in addition to the analysis that Jeff just explained about how the mega regional economy was connected before COVID, we've also been tracking some preliminary data points to shed light on how the post-pandemic mega regional economy might take shape, sort of while recognizing that there's still a lot of uncertainty around things like the continued level of remote work and other lifestyle changes that could impact travel habits. These next set of data points help to begin to understand what the mega region might look like after the pandemic. So you can go to the next slide. So first off, we looked at office job growth over the course of 2020 across 4 different subregions of the mega region. So this chart shows job growth across 3 sectors that predominantly employ people in office jobs: information, finance, and professional services. And as you'll see, these jobs have recovered faster to pre-pandemic job levels in the Sacramento area than the San Francisco Bay Area. So this trend indicates an accelerated disbursement of office jobs throughout the mega region. You can go to the next slide. So despite that shift in how office job growth is trending, the various mega regional geographies are still experiencing overall employment opportunity quite differently. So the San Francisco Bay Area still has the lowest level of unemployment as of the end of 2020. So this shows December 2020 unemployment levels. You can go to the next slide. We've also been looking at rent costs over the course of 2020 in the mega region, and we found that rents grew faster outside of the San Francisco Bay Area. So you'll see some of the major metros in the San Francisco Bay Area, which are in teal on this chart, actually fell pretty significantly, while metros such as Stockton, Sacramento, and Salinas saw faster growing rent costs over the course of 2020. So this trend sort of shows the beginning of a shift in housing preferences away from the San Francisco Bay Area to other areas of the mega region. You can go to the next slide. This map further exemplifies that shift in housing preference. So it shows change of address data from USPS. So a red dot means more people moved their address away from the city than to the city over the course of the pandemic, while a green dot means more people moved to the city than away from the city. So you'll see, if you look at the Northern California mega region, more people are changing their addresses away from metros in the Bay Area, those big red dots there, whereas the reverse is true in Sacramento. So the small green dot indicates more people relocated their address to Sacramento than away from Sacramento. So these data points sort of indicate that the mega region may be moving towards having a more dispersed workforce and population coming out of the pandemic. And if jobs and people do continue to become more dispersed across the mega region, then for the economy to operate efficiently, the region will need a rail system to support the growing demand of intercity travel between these multiple hubs of employment and population throughout the mega region. And the rail system will need to support not just commutes, which are sort of more uncertain considering the uptake of remote work, but also travel driven by business trips, recreation, healthcare services, education, etc. You can go to the next slide. But when we look at where we are today in terms of our rail system in the Northern California mega region and compare it to the reach and the efficiency of rail systems in peer mega regions in the US, we see that the Northern California mega region currently has a more limited commute shed. So the shaded white area on these maps shows locations that are accessible from each city's downtown within 1 hour of travel by rail. And San Francisco is more limited than the 3 peers shown. So ensuring the economic resiliency and especially the economic competitiveness of the Northern California mega region is tied to having a transit system that competes with peers like these other 3 shown. You can go to the next slide. So our report outlines a vision for creating a rail system that does deliver this efficient intercity travel in the Northern California megaregion that is competitive with other regions, and it's based on planned and envisioned projects across the megaregion. And as this map shows, the Transbay bottleneck is, if the Transbay bottleneck is alleviated with a new rail crossing, then it allows for the expansion of the rail network across the whole megaregion. So the new crossing not only supports the San Francisco and the Bay Area market, which we believe will continue to be a big travel market in the megaregion after the pandemic in the long term, but it also catalyzes investments that improve efficiency and access by rail to other locations in the megaregion that are poised to grow in the wake of the pandemic. You can go to the next slide. So overall, in short, early trends are showing how housing and jobs are shifting throughout the megaregion. And those trends underscore the importance of efficient passenger rail connectivity across the megaregion. And the new Transbay crossing is key to unlocking not just a new connection into San Francisco itself, but also as a catalyst for other investments across the megaregion that together create a better transit access to new and to growing travel markets. And San Francisco will likely remain an in-demand market for travel in the wake of the pandemic, but these early trends of growing population and jobs in other parts of the megaregion show that the demand for trips to and from these other locations is also likely to get bigger. And this wider travel market will be driven not just by commutes, but other types of intercity travel. And Link 21 sets the region up to deliver those intercity trips of various purpose between these locations that are currently underserved by transit more sustainably and more equitably. And also this connected passenger rail system that the new Transbay crossing unlocks is essential to ensuring that the Northern California megaregion remains competitive against other megaregions in the US, as well as other large metros internationally. So as Jeff mentioned, the full report is on our website at bayareaeconomy.org if you're interested in sort of checking out the report in more detail. And we can open it up to any questions if there's time on the agenda for that.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's a very compelling presentation. Colleagues, are there questions of our presenters on the Link 21 megaregion lens? I don't see anyone at this point.
There's several hands raised in Zoom, like virtual hands raised.
These are the public commenters. Okay, no board members. So we'll move to public comment.
Board members, Chair Saylor, Directors Rayburn and Holmes, for sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that. Oh, I see. I opened it up and there we have it. Liz, let's see, that's in public comment. So we'll come to this first. So we'll take them in the order that they're shown. So Mr. Holmes, then Mr. Houdscheld, and then Mr. Rayburn. Mr. Holmes? Jim, you're on mute.
Hello there. You got me?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, I didn't see any reference to the third track project from Sacramento to Roseville and Placer County. That would seems like a key project as far as transportation down into Sacramento, the Bay Area, and also San Jose. So is that going to be part of your Link 21 program?
Yeah, this is Rob. So the great question, because it's a helpful to pivot off of that. It absolutely will look at stuff like that. So it's not, we're not just talking about a new link here. We're talking about how this benefits the whole mega region and what other improvements we also need to make as a part of the overall program. So look forward. We'll come back to you with more details in the coming months and years.
All right, appreciate that. Thanks so much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Bruce and Robert, your hands are lowered. Bruce, did you want to make a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to build off of that. And your Greer, in your last slide, the third bullet, I assume that's both ways between those regions, and there's value built into that because, you know, as your earlier slide showed, you know, there's a move for office space into other regions. You know, we're seeing it here, certainly in the Placer County area. And so the ability for, you know, highly educated tech workers to maybe come to, you know, counter commute to Placer County or Davis or other areas is equally important. So I wanted to make sure that is covered in that third bullet point. It's not just inward to the, you know, the center city.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, the uptake of remote work, and as you mentioned, and as our presentation showed, sort of the accelerated disbursement of people to these wider geographies of the mega region definitely makes travel in both directions a big driver as to why the project's important.
Right, thank you. And to build off of that, and Rob, this may be covered in 11H, but the restoration of the nonstop service to San Jose is critically important.
Very good. Rob, were you going to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that in the managing director's report. Yep.
All right, very, very good. So we have Mr. Rayburn and then Mr. Spearing. Mr. Rayburn, do you have a comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair Saylor. Robert Rayburn. This is a very exciting project that transcends past experiences with building huge projects, and by including equity, as well as a number of other aspects. And it's taking into account that the population growth is on the periphery right now, with Placer and San Joaquin County leading the way and creating an over jobs imbalance. I want to point to the lessons learned from building out Bart. And number one, Bart was overly costly because it was a brand new system. Number two, Bart was singularly focused on one destination, San Francisco. And number three was that Bart basically ignored land use. And in fact, now we're trying to right that ship on the Bart board and address land use and create more of a balance. I think that what Link 21 is offering is the opportunity to save costs by rebuilding existing networks, by integrating the fare mechanisms, and as well as the connecting services. That's something that, again, Bart ignored. We didn't look at the connections. It was build a parking lot and you know, there'll be a road somewhere sort of attitude. And now we're really focused on the connections should have come first into the system. And that's where I think we can actually achieve a number of early wins with Link 21. And finally, I think that this project will appeal to growing populations of remote workers that are going to continue spreading farther and farther afield. They may not be regular commuters, but they're going to need to have access. So I think we're really on the right track. And I look forward to Greer updating the slide on the not only the remote worker mode, but also the slide for the 1 hour commute shed to look at a projection for what changes will come about from Link 21. And I think it starting to really address the individual communities out there and let them know that you're going to have newfound access that's faster than you can get there in an automobile. That's going to be a major point in selling this to the public. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rayburn. Mr. Spearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple comments. In our Bay Plan 2050, we show a very large number of telecommuters. And, if you look at what's going on in the country today, that is the trend. And, experts are saying that a large number of the workforce will not be commuting. And so on a regular basis. So, I'm hoping that's being considered. The other is, the cost of this. I notice we're not showing those costs. This is in the billions of dollars. And for the Bay Area and our regional plan, we're billions of dollars short now. And so I'm not sure where this money would come out of the system and, what project would be jeopardized. The other is, has there been an analysis of just doing a BART tube without the heavy rail? And have we seen the separation in those costs? And I think that that's something that certainly needs to be looked at. And the last thing, if we're going to talk about this rail system, is there a discussion about a regional rail consolidation or coordination? I really think it's very short-sighted to talk about a mega project like this without really looking at how these systems are run. And they're really not well connected, I think. So, when you talk about BART, Caltrains, Capital Corridor, that list goes on, all separate boards and agencies, and really that needs to be part of this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Great comments. I think that the overall comment about budget and timeline those are items that are sort of moving targets. This is in flux, but perhaps our presenters would like to make an observation around those comments.
Camille, you want to handle that question?
Yeah, we have a timeline right now of 2040 that will continue to be updated as we develop the program further. And we definitely are hoping to look at a number of different projects that would hopefully be implemented by or before that time.
Okay. Very good. And the funding is yet to be determined. That's one of the obvious challenges that the project faces. Are there any other questions or comments from the board before we turn to the public comment that we've got? I don't see or hear anyone, so we'll go to public comment. We have one hand raised, and this will be Liz Ames. And Ms. Ames, if you would limit your comments to about 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Sailor, this is Liz Ames. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I'm a BART director representing Southern Alameda County and sandwiched between I-880 and I-680. And I see this super commuter phenomenon. It's sad to see we have gaps in the system where people are compelled to drive. I see this news article here from the Mercury News that there's 90-minute commutes coming from Solano County, 74% is coming from Solano County, 58% is coming from San Joaquin County. And I believe that a lot of these commuters are going to San Jose and the peninsula, because that's where I'm at. I'm at the crossroads of the super commuters. And I would urge the board, I really appreciate the last board member comment, because I do see a lack of coordination and gaps. There's a Benicia Rail Bridge, I'll call it that, because it spans Solano and Contra Costa. It's a freight and passenger rail bridge built in 1930. It's not on the Link 21 capital plan. And it's beyond its useful life. I'm sure it's getting inspected by the state, but it also hauls petroleum products, and it's a drawbridge because it was built too low. So the vessels have to pass through a drawbridge process. And that
delays Capitol Corridor by 10 minutes, because I see this in Fremont at the Centerville station. I've tried to take the train to San Jose, and it's about 10 minutes late because of the drawbridge activity. And I know there's a lot of coordination that Capitol Corridor has tried to do. But again, that's the kind of coordination I think we need to see. And also think about climate change. We've got the South Bay Connect project between Oakland and San Jose to improve the service for 13 minutes. And I would step back and pause and look at the gaps first, because money is an issue. And what are we gaining between Oakland and San Jose when we can get almost the same travel savings for fixing it first, fixing this rail bridge? And also please consider freight. Where is freight going? That is an economic driver for the Bay Area. And we talk about this being an economic, Bay Area being an economic machine, basically one of the top GDP producers in the world. We have to talk about freight and the ports and coordination between the two to get both passenger and freight moving throughout the state. So thank you so much. I hope we can coordinate more and compete less and get that ridership up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a good motto, coordinate more and compete less. That's very good. I don't see any other commenters requesting by raised hand. Are there any, Patty, are there any public comments that we've received on this topic?
No, there are not.
All right, very good. I think we're ready. Thank you to all the presenters. This is going to be before us for quite some time, and we appreciate getting an update from time to time. Thank you. That's the end of our public comment time. Sorry about that. So we'll move to item 9, Managing Director's Report.
And I have some, Patty, I have some slides for this one.
Okay, this is the one where I let you share your slide. Is that right?
No. There's a Managing Director's Report within the slide deck. Yep.
Okay, got it.
And Chair Saylor, if it works for you, I have a few items on here. I'll pause at the end of the schedule update and take questions on that, because that's a significant item, and then I'll go through the rest of them together and take questions at the back end.
Very good, thank you.
All right, if you can go to the next slide, please. So you heard a little bit about this, and I was hoping to come to you today and say this is 100% done. It's 99.8% done. We are working on final approvals with Union Pacific. We have been working over the course of many months on a schedule change, and as others have alluded to in earlier presentations, we coordinate with Union Pacific. We have to run our trains with freight service, and also in some areas share tracks with Caltrain and ACE, and need to make all that work. So at a high level, what you will see when this is out in public is a regular service pattern, what some call a pulse pattern, which is a more predictable approach to our arrival and departure times. This was something that's a big part of the state rail plan. It allows more coordination with local transit services, more predictability in departures. It also helps in dispatching and can help improve reliability. Because we have single track territory for part of our service area, we can't perfectly do this, but it's better. So we're moving in the right direction. It will improve our connections, as I said, to other transit services, but also to Bart at Richmond Station, where we have lots of transfers. We're also dealing with some of the reliability issues that we had built into our previous schedule, so we expect our reliability numbers to go up. But we're going to be closely monitoring that with Union Pacific in the coming months. As of this morning, my expectation is that we will be able to start this new service schedule on the 29th of March, but we want to give our customers lots of time, and we'll publicize this quite a bit as it comes out. One of the things that we're going to do is show the full 15 round trip schedule, even though we're not going to run that in the beginning. We're going to continue to run the 8 round trips, but we want to show our customers that we do have a big vision for where we're headed here in terms of our overall schedule. The biggest change, a lot of these are relatively small changes on individual trains, but the biggest change in this new pattern is that we will now have a direct service from Auburn all the way to San Jose. So that single round trip a day used to end in Oakland, and with this new change, we'll go all the way to San Jose. Eventually, as you're all aware, we will go to 3 round trips to Roseville and expand that service further. With that, I'm going to pause and actually let me mention one more thing, and it goes back to the comments earlier about Truckee and some of the new patterns we're seeing. This service pattern, although the changes are somewhat mild in terms of the significance, it is intended to capture those long-distance travelers. We want to make sure that we're set up for those who are coming into the Bay Area to Silicon Valley, but also those who are headed up to Sacramento, because as others have mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of travelers that head up to Sacramento, sometimes for the day for work, sometimes as a long-distance commuter, and we want to make sure that our service suits those travelers as well. So with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
Okay, any questions on the schedule change and the? I don't see hands from the board, so we can move on.
Okay, great. And Patty, if you can go back to the slides. Next slide. So first I want to highlight the recently released annual performance report. And if you have not had an opportunity to take a look, this is our first entirely online performance report. We think this is going to work well and let us share our success through a lot of our social media outlets. I want to thank our outgoing Chair Saltzman and our incoming Chair Saylor, who participated, and you can check out the online video. We also had our staff read the anti-racism statement. Overall, this is a really dynamic product, and I think you'll be pleased. So I encourage those who are on the board to take a look, and those who are listening in today to do the same. Next slide. So I wish I could just scroll through this slide without pausing, but I'll highlight the good points on this graphic here. This is the first 2 months of FY 21. On-time performance, we're at target here. Next slide. Our revenue is well below last fiscal year, and actually a little bit below even our conservative estimate. So we're still, as Leo mentioned earlier, hovering in the 12–13% of ridership from last year. So we're below target at this point. Next slide. And the same is true with ridership, and this is a month-by-month ridership comparison to last year. I will say in the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see a return. We're still not quite where we were, say, in October, November, but I do think we're starting to see a slow return to our service, and we'll keep our eyes out in the coming months. Next slide. Next thing I want to touch on is our right-of-way program, and as you're well aware, we have been challenged with trespasser fatalities and are actively working with Union Pacific and Amtrak and some of our local communities. So there's a lot of work on the ground to try to secure the right-of-way. You can go to the next slide. And this just gives you a snapshot of the kind of work we're doing. So we're doing our best to keep the right-of-way safe and not occupied with fencing where we have a lot of folks crossing the tracks. We also are working with our local partners so that when we see issues on the tracks, we can respond as quickly as possible. And we want to do everything in our power to keep this area as safe as possible. Next slide. And here you see a summary of our customer feedback in recent months. We're still low, so we don't have a lot of customer comments compared to historic numbers. But the really good news on this graphic is you're seeing a lot of neutral comments. And what a neutral comment tells you is that we have a person who reaches out to us through one of our channels, and we're able to get back and respond to their question. And really, we see this as a positive. As you know, we've worked over the past year on improving our channels of communication, and we see this as an outcome that we would hope to see. And before I wrap up, I want to, if I could go to, I think Travis has a slide we're going to show here. I want to thank two people on the phone today. The first is Rose Fabletti, who has been our controller for the last 5 years, and appreciate her service. And then Patty Williams, who is running the show, and cannot thank her enough. This has probably been the hardest year, I suspect, of her career. And it is certainly not easy, and we want to extend our appreciation as staff for all of her support over the last 24 years. With that, I'll pause and take any questions.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Patty and Rose, for all of your support for this effort that we share. Thank you very much on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
Yes. Are there questions from the board on the managing director's report? Very good. I don't see any hands or hear anyone, and I don't see any hands for public comment. Is there any public comment on these items?
There is one public comment that has been submitted via email from Mike Barnbaum, and it was transmitted to you yesterday.
Thank you. And I see Director McPartland has indicated an interest in a comment.
I really want to echo Rob's applause and gratitude for both Rose and Patty. They cannot be thanked and appreciated enough. And their absence is going to be felt for some time, and the corporate knowledge that we're losing is going to end up being a painful void that we will have to figure out how to fill. And I want to thank both of them for their contributions and their help along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
You're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Okay, very good. So I'm seeing a lot of applause happening in every room around the region. So thank you both. You should take a picture of that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Rob, do you want to move to item 10?
Yeah, on 10 and 11, I'll take any questions on either of those.
Thank you. Are there any questions, colleagues, on items 10 or 11, work completed and work in progress?
Yeah, Chair Saylor, I just want to, on 11H, I believe it is.
Director Howdeshelt.
Yeah, just want to restate what I mentioned under the previous comment about the importance of the nonstop service to San Jose. So.
Thank you. We look forward. We have a great partnership with Placer County, and we are looking forward to our partnership to promote that service once we turn it on.
Very good. Any other comments from board members? Director Perales, Vice Chair Perales?
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to echo that as well. Obviously, excited to have more service coming into San Jose and out of San Jose. This has been something personally that I've been interested in as the growth of the CCJPA is continuing to serve, I think, the South Bay and connect us to Sacramento more frequently, and look forward to this and as we continue those efforts moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't see other board members with a raised hand. We have two public comments, raised hands in the attendee area. Can you please let Mr. Zhang speak? He was first.
And Chair Saylor, I think Director Rayburn had a comment as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. Please go ahead.
Sorry. I want to back Raul's comments regarding improving service to San Jose. As a former frequent rider between Oakland and San Jose, it's a service that's really throttled back, and yet the demand is certainly there. I also want to report that this last Sunday I rode the Cap Corridor, boarded train 737 midday on Sunday at Martinez. It was delayed due to just the bridge being up. It was only maybe a 2-3 minute delay. Nevertheless, the information on the platform wasn't being conveyed because one of the signs is totally out on the platform. So we need to pay attention to, I think, rescheduling, making sure that our signs are working and we're communicating with the ship operators. This is the only train in the middle of the day, and yet they couldn't hit the leave the bridge down for us at that time. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. I think we have two public comments on the work items 10 and 11. So we have James Zhang and Liz Ames. Mr. Zhang, could you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we're listening?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Cool. My name is James Zhang. I'm a resident of City of Fremont. I'm expressing my concerns regarding the South Bay Connect project. I'm concerned that the cancellation of the Hayward station will be catastrophic to the community, consisting of a lot of Black and Hispanic residents who may not have cars or cannot drive. Just a reminder, Hayward has 11% African American and 40.7% Hispanic population. That's more than half of our population. I'm also concerned that the project will add more home noise to the quiet Hayward, Union City, Fremont, Newark residential areas, which again is very racially diverse area, causing more traffic to the commute hours, especially in the already congested Ardenwood Park and Ride and State Route 84 intersection. Even for Capitol Corridor as a whole, it's not clear how much additional ridership will the project bring. The plan seems only suggesting very marginal improvement with up to 13 minutes. That's 13 minutes time saving in an hours long commute. Plus the Dumbarton Rail project is on hold indefinitely now. If the goal is only to connect the buses, what's the problem of just using the existing Fremont station and extend the bus line instead of moving the station? I don't think it's a smart way to spend $349 million, especially during COVID-19, where many people are struggling, likely for years to come. I believe that the CCJPA does not want to have the impression that they only cater towards the rich commuters, a lot of whom work in tech, with 13 minutes of time saving at the cost of Black and Hispanic communities and $349 million of taxpayer dollars. I repeat, the last thing CCJPA wants is to cater towards rich workers with 13 minutes time saving at the cost of Black and Hispanic communities and $349 million of taxpayer dollars. This is not only a local issue, this is a regional issue. I participated in all community town hall meetings as well as several city council meetings where the program managers presented the project. In all of these meetings, there are overwhelming concerns from the public and city leaders. There's an online petition with more than 1,400 signatures, change.org/no-coast route. And then the project has received wide objections from almost all cities along the project line, including Hayward, Union City, San Leandro, and Fremont. All of them have sent pretty straight and strong opposition letters to the project management. I will encourage the board to read those letters and make them permanent records, if not already. Despite that, the project seems still continuing. I believe it's not a good idea to continue the EIR, which itself will cost millions of dollars, given overwhelmingly strong opposition from the community.
Mr. Zhang, thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. We'll now move to Liz Ames. And Ms. Ames, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Saylor. I concur with the last speaker. Obviously, that's a constituent of in my district in Fremont. And I guess the issue really is coordination. The MTC was supposed to finish an interregional rail study in Southern Alameda County to look at ACE, Capitol Corridor, Dumbarton Rail, and Bart, and find the right fit for Southern Alameda County. And so I would just urge the board to pause South Bay Connect, look at the gaps in the system. I had mentioned the supercommuter phenomenon, and Solano County is a big supercommuter county, and that bridge should be replaced. That should be a top priority for the board to investigate in their vision implementation plan for Capitol Corridor. Also,
that's the Solano County. And then there's San Joaquin County. So that's a huge area where, again, super commuters are there because we have what we call the missing middle. The missing middle are those that are buying a house that they can afford. They make 80,000 or more, and they can buy the house and they're willing to commute to get to work. Again, there's no real rail service, and it's not shown that ACE and that connection east-west should be linked up to Dumbarton Rail. The east-west connection is addressing the super commuters, not north-south, other than we already have service north-south from Capitol Corridor. So the other issue with South Bay Connect is essentially they picked a preferred alternative, the Ardenwood station, which is at a park and ride bus depot. And I'm concerned about that because we have a BART station that also has a bus depot for the commuters going over the Dumbarton Bridge. And the Union City BART station was not evaluated in the EIR scoping for the project. So I question why Ardenwood was selected as the preferred site. I think that if South Bay Connect wants to, embrace these other comments, they should rescope the project and also look at the buses clogged on the Dumbarton Bridge. There should be a contraflow bus lane only project that would address the bottlenecks. That's another gap that's not being addressed in the transportation planning effort. So I hope that the board can reassess this need for South Bay Connect and look at the mega region and the gaps in our system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think I don't see any other requests for public comment. And so we'll move to item 6 on our agenda for board directors' reports.
I'm sorry, there is one more hand raised.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And who is this? Yang. Thank you. We're listening to you, Yang.
Oh, thank you. So I'm also want to express my concern about this South Bay Connect project, mainly because most of the projections and the numbers are based on the pre-pandemic time, and I feel that all the landscape of a commuter and the frequency will be changed dramatically after the pandemic. So I urge the board to reconsider the justification of this project at the first place. And also, the previous speaker mentioned the $300 million that have been spent on this, what will be spent on the project, likely will have a better effort, better effectiveness in other projects like a BART, extension of BART, or Fair the Bridge. Well, the train, the concept of there's a cargo train and the passenger train mixed transportation is really a kind of old concept. I just feel that this has to be some kind of a better way to spend this amount of money. Yeah, that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We appreciate it. Are there any other public comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to directors' reports. Would anyone like to make a comment or share a report? I don't see any hands raised or any indication of an interest in sharing a report. So if I move now to public comment on items not on our agenda, do we have any requests? Oh, Bruce, I see you've raised your hand. Did you want to make a report?
It's not really a report. It's more of the way of an introduction and an appreciation. So I look forward to learning about each of your areas as a member of this JPA. This is reminiscent of the area I grew up in. I grew up in College Park, Maryland, which ultimately became the end of the Green Line of the Metro. So a lot of I have an enthusiasm, not just because of where I came from. I've been in California for 30 years, but I have a love for what is being done with this JPA. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. We very much appreciate it and look forward to working with you. Yeah. I think we all have a certain passion for the rail, so it's good to have you with us. Okay, any other reports or comments from the board? Seeing none, do we have any? We're now we're kind of nearing the end of our time, so we have at least one member of the public who'd like to address us. I'm going to ask if you can limit to 2 minutes so that we can hear from you and then move into our closing of the meeting. We have one commenter request with a phone number of 707 area code. Would you like to talk to us for about 2 minutes, please?
Yes, this is Doug Kerr. I'm with the Rail Passenger Association of California, otherwise known as RailPAC. And I just wanted to inform board and staff that we are starting a program to get better coordination between the 3 California corridor services and Amtrak's national network long-distance trains. For the Capital Corridor, there are 2 trains involved. One is the Coast Starlight from Los Angeles to Seattle, which actually provides an additional corridor frequency between San Jose and Sacramento. The other train is the California Zephyr, Emeryville to Chicago, provides a corridor frequency from Emeryville to Roseville and actually on to Reno, Nevada. These trains currently run 3 days a week due to the pandemic, so there's no action required at the moment. But when they do return to daily operation in June or July, we would like to see these trains also show up in Capital Corridor timetables. And in addition, we'd like the train status displayed on the passenger information displays at the stations used by these trains. Our philosophy is we shouldn't be asking the traveling public to know the difference between national network and corridor trains. If there is an Amtrak train going where the passenger wants to go, they should be able to find the information in one place, regardless whether it's a state-supported corridor train or a federally supported national network train. They say this is not urgent because we have to wait till we get back to daily operation. And I will also follow up with an email to Rob Padgett with our requests here. So just wanted to make that public. I thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate that comment very much. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to address our board on items not on the agenda?
There are no other hands raised.
I don't see any either. All right. Rob, I think we've concluded the business of the day. Is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So with that, we'll adjourn this meeting, and our next meeting for our board is April 21st at 10 a.m. I look forward to seeing you all on the rails. Bye-bye. We're adjourned.
Okay, Travis, is there anything I need to do as far as the YouTube goes?
We just go ahead and hit the drop down next to it,